Land? Nope. Sea? Not really. And air? Don't think so. Oh, and welcome to Britain. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnson and welcome to The Interesting Times, which is a show that looks at the funny side of UK politics, giving us the chance to laugh so much it hurts. Some of you may have wondered where Suella Braverman has gone in the last few months, and that maybe she had fallen foul to her own racist deportation policies. Well, fear not, or fear, as Suella spent Monday on the breakfast round to show the British public just what they were missing. First things first, Sky News with Jane Secker.
We've just recruited 20,000 additional police officers. So we now have
recruited 3,000 additional police officers. You lost 20,000 police officers, didn't you, over from 2010 up to the latest date? So you've lost 20,000, you've gained 23,000. So you've gained 3,000.
That's wrong. We now have a record number of police officers.
It's the Home Office figures that I have
ever in the history of policing.
I've got the Home Office figures. You've got 149,000 police officers at the moment. There were 146 in 2010.
OK, and 149,000 more. They were on September the 28th, 1829, the day before Robert Peel introduced the Metropolitan Police Act. The fact is there are more people in the UK than there had previously been when he came to power in 2010. With the last Labour government, there was one police officer for every 430 people. Now it's one police officer for every 452. Then on to Radio 4 Today programme, and she laid out her vision for an effective crime-clearing RoboCop force with no such thing as minor crimes.
In far too many instances, the police have dismissed many crimes as minor. And I'm saying that has to change. So whether your phone's stolen or your watch is stolen or whether your car is stolen, whether your bike has been stolen, whether your house has been stolen, whether
my house? Whether my house has been stolen? I would say if my house has been stolen, I've been pretty careless. Stop him, he's just stolen my house and he's getting away. Very slowly. Brick by brick. I mean, how rough is your neighbourhood if you come back to find someone's pinched your house? He's taken my house and all I've got left are these utility bills for energy I won't be using. There's a bit of an issue on housing and the environment. Basically, we've been following those pesky interfering EU rules on keeping our countryside countrified. Now Sunak has got rid of those rules and at the same time kept our net zero targets. It's a miracle. How has he done it?
Now, it's been revealed that water companies received nearly £100 million in tax cuts last year. That's despite allowing excess wastewater into beaches and rivers for hundreds of thousands of hours. It follows an announcement from the government that it plans to scrap EU-era restrictions which protect rivers from the impacts of house building.
That's true. Now you can simply turn on the tap and enjoy the sort of heady, overpowering chocolate mixture that your dog would lap up. Actually, that's not the only Brexit benefit, as the extra houses will mean extra shit in rivers. More shit? It's getting to the stage where we'll just have log-jammed rivers of logs. There's so much crap in England's rivers that all the geese go in looking like this and come out looking like this. That should be the Tories' next slogan. Vote for us to swallow more of our shit. They're certainly putting the anal in canal.
Can you really sit there and tell me, Michael, you are completely content with the government's environmental record?
Well, I'm never content. I always think that we should do better. But I do want
to... But it's worse than it was.
If you look, for example, at the ammonia, which is a sort of principal byproduct of some of the waste that we're talking about here, it's a sort of key indicator of sewage in our waters. The ammonia being detected has gone down.
Of course ammonia has gone down. That's because you've been taking a piss for the last 13 years.
So, of course, our rivers aren't as clean as they should be, but they are cleaner than they have been in the past.
Better than when? The 17th century? So who can tell me that the UK rivers are cleaner than ever? Oh, right. Sorry, Michael Gove. That's fair. Or at least it would be if not for the fact that that headline was from over 20 years ago. So what about now? Are the rivers cleaner? Well, not according to the University of Leicester, or the University of Cardiff, or the University of York, or the New Scientist or Science Direct, or let's be honest, I could show you a whole number of articles put in by experts.
I think the people in this country have had enough of experts.
The Tory party, though, are just turning this into their own slightly dirtier version of two grifters, one Conservative and Union Party. But of course, England's rivers aren't the only thing facing the country's long-suffering commuters, as the ULEZ, London's ultra-low emission zone, was expanded by Sadiq Khan, London's Labour mayor, a man on a mission to halt the emissions. Now, to say this policy is divisive is like saying Rishi Sunak lacks charisma. First things first, I live in central London, and I don't drive, so it doesn't really affect me. Obviously, others, of course, yes, it does. Let's hear from the experts first.
I think the people in this country have had enough of...
Shut up, Michael!
My patients tell me is that they really struggle to breathe on high pollution days. It's terrifying not being able to catch your breath. And the pollution levels that we have in this city are making that worse.
Hi, I'm Cleo. Been a consultant surgeon for 8 years now. I'm fully in support of the ULEZ expansion. We recognise that on the most polluted days in London, the number of attendances at our emergency department increases significantly.
I'm Emma Ratcliffe and I'm a GP in East London. I believe that ULEZ will help clean up the air and make London a healthier place to live.
And this is something borne out by the mayor himself.
We can't stop asthma, but hopefully there will be less children going to hospital.
I couldn't sit back and watch the impact this toxic air was having on Londoners, and that's why this expansion of ULEZ was necessary.
So, before we get to the nub, let's deal with a lot of smoke and mirrors misinformation. The first low emission zone was brought in 2008 by Kane Livingstone and expanded to the ULEZ under Boris Johnson in 2015. Every mayor of London since the office was created at the turn of the millennium has introduced tougher air quality measures. So, first piece of misinformation, this. This letter does show Grant Shapps' idea for an expansion of ULEZ, but that was only to the North and South Circular. The latest suggestion is down to Sadiq Khan.
Why didn't you block it?
So, Julia, I don't have the power, the legal power to block this scheme from coming into force. No, I don't.
The government could have stopped this if they wanted to, but they didn't want to. Why? Well, it gives them a stick to crack over the heads of the Labour Party, and let's be honest, it's working. Yes, Sadiq Khan does use a Range Rover to get about in his official capacity. And no, Boris Johnson doesn't bike everywhere any more than he runs everywhere.
The good news is, because of our announcements and our policies, we've gone from 44% of cars being compliant to 9 out of 10 cars in outer London already being compliant.
Yes, it's only 9% of vehicles affected, but the latest estimate from the DVLA still puts that at over 850,000 vehicles. Of course, everybody wants clean air. The problem is that £12.50 per day during a cost of living crisis is just extortionate. And it means that while Sadiq Khan, I'm sure, means what he says about helping the poorest, in practice, by implementing this charge on, let's be honest, the poorest members of society, he is also forcing them to make choices that may affect their health anyway. Be that cutting out meals, turning off the heating at home during winter, working extra hours to cover the cost. A bit more carrot and a lot less stick is what's needed if you want to get people on side. Why not introduce emissions-based parking, which has been used successfully in a number of London boroughs already, and it encourages rather than forces the transfer to electric vehicles. Also, maybe slap a tariff on more expensive cars coming into the capital and use that to subsidise this. Also, maybe slap an extra 5p per journey on TfL journeys in Zone 1, where again, the more well-off are likely to be. Or maybe slap a Tory MP, not sure why that might help, just a personal preference. So you're probably thinking, sod this, rivers, roads, I'm going to fly. Well.
Thousands of British travellers and a number of famous faces are stranded this morning. Hundreds of flights delayed or cancelled yesterday following this massive air traffic control meltdown.
Yes, Brexit Ireland was facing some pretty tough quarantining. Okay. Maybe it's not to do with Brexit.
This is a really, really good question, in my opinion. This comes from Paul. He says, as my flight was cancelled, I am now overstaying my 90 days allowance in the EU, which will show at passport control from Spain. What's my position?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is where air traffic control meltdown meets post-Brexit reality of what we asked for when we voted to leave the European Union.
Oh, God. Why did we vote for this crap? Why?
But don't worry, they're not going to come after you, and they're not going to ban you from future visits to the EU.
Oh, fair enough. Well, what a load of nonsense over nothing. Project Fear.
It's Groundhog Day at the post-Brexit border, a fifth delay of the border checks and charges and red tape on EU food imports that were an inevitable consequence of the shape of the government's Brexit deal.
Oh, God. More like Project Fun.
January 2021, when the UK fully left the EU. Multiple delays since then, and today the fifth delay, after the government said those checks would increase inflation by less than 0.2% over 3 years.
The government has put it off and put it off and put it off, and given the economic situation, you can understand why. But at some point, presumably next year, they are going to have to bite that bullet.
It's going to become even harder to get businesses to prepare for the next iteration, for the next deadline, because they've been marched up this hill so many times.
But anyway, why is everyone talking about flying? It's not the holidays. Get back to school. Oh yeah, about that. Schools are kind of falling down around children's ears. Why? Well, it's because they're all a bit of a rock.
Normal reinforced concrete, determining strength of rack concrete.
Why did that shatter so easily?
It's a totally different type of composition. It has no major aggregate in there, and therefore it's a far weaker concrete. It's a massive ticking time bomb because all of these buildings are getting older, and it means that these panels could collapse with no warning at all. And we wouldn't like to know what the consequences are if the children were underneath.
The timeline for this clip was in February, and this followed on from the school's roof structure collapse in Kent in 2018, which thankfully happened on a weekend. And the government's response to the fact that roofs may collapse onto classrooms of 30 children all over the country has been, shall we say, relaxed.
Can I say this? Did you not make the following pledge? That you were going to publish information about at-risk properties before the Parliament summer recess.
Well, we will publish. Look, this issue is new.
That report, Minister, that report included RAC.
It was the condition of schools, wasn't it? That report dealt with.
So you thought it was safe, and it's no longer safe. Which
correct?
Right.
Correct.
So when you made that parliamentary statement, which was it correct or incorrect?
Well, I can't remember what that particular thing is about. But
now, was Nick Gibb, the Minister of State for Schools, the second worst person ever to hold the position, having taken over from the worst person ever to hold that position? About 156 schools have closed so far, and the in need of an education minister, Gillian Keegan, has a message for any parents concerned about what several tons of concrete may do to the developing skulls of their child.
Scale and the context. There's 22,500 schools. We're talking about 156. So most parents should not be worried about this at all.
If the school hasn't telephoned you, it might just be that they're a bit busy, and not because it's tough to get reception when you're trapped under a shed load of rubble. And that's it. No time to talk about Grant Shapps taking over from Ben Wallace as Defence Secretary. Ben Wallace, who has previously served in the military like his father before him, including in Northern Ireland, where he oversaw the capture of an entire IRA unit, then promoted to captain, where he was a member of a party who brought Diana's body back to the UK, and is still a member of the Royal Company of Archers, who are the sovereign's bodyguard in Scotland. He is now being replaced with Grant Shapps, who famously got stuck in Spain as Transport Secretary during the COVID lockdown on account of rules his department brought in. And as I'm sure you're aware, has used the pseudonym of 3 separate individuals. But what you may not know is that he's actually used the pseudonym of 4 separate individuals, as he actually referred to himself as Grant V. Shapps when he stood for election in 2001 and 2005, even though he doesn't have a middle name. What the hell does the V stand for? Certainly not victory, as he has attempted to stand as a Conservative candidate in Manchester, Brent, Southwark and Bermondsey, Welwyn and Hatfield, all without success. And since he's been elected, he's had more government positions than Carrie while she worked for Johnson, as an advisor. Oh, and he has also refused to stop using TikTok during a government-wide ban when fears were raised about the Chinese were using it for surveillance. So, to add to Specky Terry defence, looking at the current crop of crap that sits in our government, we also have dreams about breaking the law Home Secretary, doesn't know the law Immigration Minister, a Foreign Secretary showing that human rights are foreign to him, calling Saudi Arabia and China partners. Shit that I'm shoving in my body is nothing to the shit that's been shoved into the river's Environment Minister. Secretary of State for Health and Social Care.
Suspend the strikes, then we can get round the table, have talks.
No, I was right the first time. Add to that Wally Weasley, psychopathic sword holder, bollocks face, the hoarder, the pleb, the jockstrap. Oh, and this guy. Who's this, I hear you ask? Haven't seen him before. This is the leader of the House of Lords, who is called, I kid you not, Lord True. No wonder they don't want him on telly with a name like that. It would crush their reputation. No time to hear from the gospel, according to some Pointless of Ask Creepy.
Yet a new poll of the Church of England for the Times suggests that the clergy themselves no longer believe that we are a Christian country. But even if numbers going to church is in decline, if Christianity is not as strong as it once was, that does not stop our nation from being a Christian country.
Well, the census in 2021 showed that for the first time in England and Wales, less than half the population identified as Christian. And the fastest growing religion by far is no religion. It's not good news for you, Jacob. And it might be controversial to say this, but people have stopped believing in walking on water, turning water into wine, and the most preposterous belief that Brexit has benefits. No time to talk about the fact that you don't need to adjust your TV sets, as things are going exactly as our beloved leader is expecting. And anyone who says different is just a bunch of lefty, loopy, loony, lovey, lounge lizards. Because you know what? This country is doing pretty bloody amazingly.
I'm proud of the economic support that I put in place as Chancellor during the pandemic. And new figures out today show that in fact the UK performed far better economically than previously thought. I delivered for you then, and I will deliver for you now.
Is he talking from a locker room? Is this the only place he can spout his garbage? I mean, have all Union Jacks disowned him? I'm half expecting to see an elderly naked man in the corner of the shot, hair drying his balls. Although, if that did happen, it still wouldn't be the most horrifying thing in this video. No time to talk about the first anniversary of the sad passing of Her Majesty the Queen. So let's hear now from someone who, if there was any justice, would be made the court jester. But unfortunately, the country had other ideas.
In the next few days, we face the melancholy anniversary of the death of our beloved Queen Elizabeth. And I reveal what she told me about how to deal with a certain spooky, very common bird.
So excuse me, they're called women now, thank you. And that is no way to talk about Theresa May. And finally, this has been a bit of a depressing episode, so how about something to lighten the mood? Conservative Deputy Party leader and canary in the coal mine's backup, Liam Anderson made a couple of mistakes. Mistake number one, he decided to do an interview, but it was with ITV News, where grinning creepy creatures didn't just nod along to everything he said. The second mistake he made was meeting members of the public, rather than his mates.
If you asked 100 people outside about net zero, 90 won't be bothered to say, they're more interested in paying the gas bill or electric bill.
But then, guess what this man, who Anderson stresses is not his constituent but from a neighbouring seat, brings up.
We shouldn't be burning coal and oil and everything else.
Well, coming in a diesel van and complain about net zero.
Yeah. You could afford a petrol car at money you getting.
I worked out Pitford for many years.
I know you worked out Pitford for many years.
That's how I can afford it. That's how I can afford it.
That's not how you can afford it.
Because I save the money.
You can afford it because you're getting high wages being an MP.
Wait, how much do we get, do you think?
Or is it 74,000, 84,000?
It's about that, yeah.
Yes, something like that. Yes, the figure he makes is something like £84,000 per year for talking arse, and an extra 100 grand for presenting his GB News, where he talks arse. Still, unlike our water companies, nice to know someone's cleaning up. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the vid, give it a like, and also please subscribe, share and leave a comment, and I'll see you all next Sunday. Take care.